To the Foy and Jones Show. My podcast is back in the virtual recording studio. We love you, Riverside FM. You have got the magic to make this podcast happen, especially supported by our producer, Charlie. And joining me today, I've got someone who I got to know a few years ago. He's a builder's merchant boy through and through. He's going to tell you his story. He's going to tell you what he's doing now. And of course, in normal Foy and Jones style, we're going to be talking from the ground up. We're going to walk through his career and then talk about his love of football as well. Luke Brittle, welcome to the podcast. How are you, sir?
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, great. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Really looking forward to having a good catch up. And after knowing you for a while and being big football fans, it's great to do this.
It's brilliant. Look, you know, one of the things I bring into almost every business conversation I have, Luke, is my love of football and my love of Fulham. It's quite good being a Fulham fan because you don't upset that many people, although at the moment it's not ideal because the Al Fayed legacy, and I'm going to say it, is being tarnished. He took us from the old fourth division to the Premier League in Europe, and it was an amazing journey for a club I supported. But when you see what's happening in the press now, it's ruining the legacy. It's not okay. And what it also does, and this is just football fans in general, it didn't have to give the away fans or the home fans a bit of content when you're there now. They certainly let you know of Al Fayed's interest away from football and away from Harrods. So not particularly ideal thing to start the show on, but we are going to talk about football. And I did want to put that in because there is no way I'm not getting asked that question. I'm getting asked that question all the time, so I'm not going to avoid it. I was a huge fan of Al Fayed. He achieved things with Fulham that I never thought possible, but his legacy's been tarnished and how he's behaved's not okay, and that's going to be my position on it. I feel sorry for Marco Silva. You know, he's only been here 3 years. He's been asked to comment on something that happened 20 plus years ago, but that's the modern world and it doesn't excuse what's happening, and I hope they get some closure and some compensation. So, Luke, how are you? Family okay? You was a little bit Tom Dick last week, mate, but you're back fighting fit now. You okay?
Yeah, I'm back at it now, thank you. Yeah, and family's really good. I've got the two kids that are doing really well at school and a wife that somehow manages to glue us all together and keep us going. So they're all good.
We're nothing without that glue, Luke, are we? We're absolutely nothing. So do you want to give your children a shout out, mate? Go on, give them a shout out, say hello.
Yeah, so I've got a young whippersnapper of a lad called Jaden who's 7 years old. Jaden's, I think everybody that knows me and the family know that Jaden's an absolute firecracker. He's always got something to say. He's always got a response. He's really quick-witted. And actually, Peter, really great that I've just started running his football team. So big shout out to the Stretton Eagles group, a local village, and they've got Hope, who's a complete contrast to Jaden, where she's 9 years old and she's developing into a young woman. So if I'm not being told off by the wife, I'm being told off by the daughter. Would we have it any other way?
It never changes. Mrs. Jones says she's got like 3 challenges now because she's got me, you know, and I'm approaching 50. She's got a 26-year-old in Harry and she's got a 22-year-old in Henry. And when those special occasions when we're all back in the house together, yeah, it's intense, you know. But that glue that holds you together is probably one of the most important things inside and outside of business. So, Luke, what I want to do to start the podcast, and I've been asking my guests to do it, everyone was celebrating online the CEO of the Nike, the new Nike CEO. You know, we see that he began as an intern. He did this job, he did that job, and it plays out amazingly. And you see this longevity of career, you know, and that's almost inspired Dave Blitz and I. And shout out to Dave Blitz and our sponsors, E.T. Clay. From the ground up it's driven by them. It's driven by Dave. And what we want to do is ask our guests to kind of share their journey, where it started, how it started, the roles you've been involved in, and it kind of brings us in a brilliant way to what you're doing now as well. So that's what I'm gonna dive into, Luke. In the second half of the show, you've got a signed Burton Albion. Is that a Burton shirt behind you? You've got a signed Burton Albion shirt. Yeah, you've got a signed Burton Albion shirt. I've got my Johnny Haynes Fulham 10 shirt. first £100 a week player. I got him up just to keep things real. But we'll talk about the work your business now is doing in the local community here at Burton. And then we'll talk about your football team, Derby. Do you want to know a little fact about Derby and Fulham? It's kind of football related, but not that football related.
Go on.
Well, it is football
You've got some great facts.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, this is right. Listen, growing up in the 80s, in the Panini sticker albums, right? Panini sticker albums. Back in the day when we were both Division 2 teams, which is now the Championship, you didn't get a full spread. You got like a little badge. And for years, in the alphabetical order, Derby and Fulham were on the same foil badge, and you used to stick it in. So I always had a soft spot for Derby, but just because of that, when you got the Fulham badge, you got the Derby badge. So there you go. But you weren't expecting that one, mate, were you? Because that was well before your time, that one.
No, that's good. Anyway, nice bit of nostalgia there, Peter. That's I like
that. Do you know what? Do you remember the old stickers? Got, need. Do you remember that?
Oh,
in the old playground.
Yeah, you meet your mates at school and trade away.
Yeah, I never could get Colin Pates of Chelsea to finish the album, mate. But there you go. It is what it is. All right. So back to the show, back to the podcast. We will come on to football. We're not going to miss this opportunity to talk about your team and the work you're doing in the community. But let's talk about our audience, the builders merchant population, and the suppliers and manufacturers and businesses that supply this industry. Let's get to know you. So, where did it start from for you? How did you end up sitting here today? What was the first job you did, mate? Walk us through your journey.
Yeah, so I'd left school and I was working at a local bowling alley, and unfortunately that got sold, and my first job turned into a redundancy situation. So I kind of sat online looking around and taking a steer from parents and thought, I'd love to do a form of apprenticeship whilst learning. I think there's so much more. You'll agree with this massively, that being able to have an apprenticeship, learning a skill in the trade whilst earning some money is a fantastic way of going. So I applied for an apprenticeship at an independent merchant, funnily enough, to where I am now. I went for an interview there, and they really enjoyed having a conversation with me and understood what I could bring to them in a form of energy and my eager to learn. And I think that was really important, is coming into somewhere going, I want to earn some money and I've got to learn the job. But I really wanted to learn what the job was. And then as a young lad, Peter, you kind of sit there and go, I don't know where this is going to take me. What are my plans? Are they to stay for 6 months? Are they to stay for 30 years? You don't know. But do you know what? A great opportunity to go and learn. So I started out at the independent and kind of got shoved into plumbing and heating, which I think you'd say is pretty fair, is one of the toughest areas to go into. With 30,000 fittings and having to learn it all.
I try to stay out of that. I try to stay very general on my journey, and if we went specific on the roof or into kitchens or plumbing, I'd always try and bring in people who knew what they were talking about. That was my tactics anyway. But yeah, very specific. So, takes me back to those dreaded stock takes of my younger years when I'd arrive, a little bit worse for wear on a Saturday morning and I'm getting tucked up in a very complicated area thinking, I don't need this. Fulham at home later. I just want to go to football. But so it began with an apprenticeship, mate. Fair play.
Yeah, so I did an apprenticeship and completed that over a kind of just about a year and a half of learning. And the plan always was to move around the independent business. So you get involved in the sheet material, you get involved in all things timber, moving across to whether it's kitchens and bathroom sales, heavy side, etc. But one thing was for sure there is that through some changes and some retirement, I kind of got asked to bob in and bob out of different areas. Some people might say jack of all trades, master of none, but the whole point is that I could soak up as much understanding of the industry and what customers are about, what they need, who they are, and simply just learn products. And quite frankly, it doesn't take much more than just listening with these and understanding what the customer needs to kind of start a journey. And then the penny dropped in understanding, actually, I really enjoy the sales front, but communicating with people face to face is absolutely something that I want to do. So it kind of, the journey took me, that's where I started, and the journey took me on from there. And I moved back to a local company outside of the industry, taking my experience in the world of dealing with customers to actually a company that sold television, Sky, Sky Sports, etc. packages. So there was a lot of talking about football again and selling that to customers. And unfortunately, that didn't work out with that business in reference to probably scale of staff, and they needed to downscale. And I'd only been there for a couple of months. So then I kind of found myself in a position going, right, okay, I'm looking for a job. And unfortunately, it's not always what you know, it's who you know. And a family member of mine had got me in touch with the local Travis Perkins. And then that's kind of for me where the real journey started. And I went for a little chat, and they said, look, we're after somebody on the trade counter, but somebody that can help in the yard. And I said, here we go again. Right, I've got some trainee experience here. I can bring it in to a standing start and help build on my journey. And, with both of our backgrounds in that national builders merchant, is that there's plenty of opportunity. Plenty of opportunity for self-growth, plenty of opportunity to grow yourself through the industry, through that particular business. And had a very successful time there in the stint that I was there for. So, really interested to start out in independent, move through eventually to the nationals, but really kind of move through the business with a real understanding of how all the nooks and crannies work.
There was a fantastic pathway as well. You talk about the green and gold. That's where my journey began, and it's probably many of my happiest memories were in the 9 3/4 years I was at Travis. And similar, it was a local branch. It was Fulham. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was Fulham, and that's where it began. And it led me into more sales-led positions. I enjoyed the external selling, that side of it. And eventually, I look back on my career in it, merchant career per se, and it ended as London sales director for Jewson in 27. I was very young when I got that gig. And I think, looking at how I progressed, there was elements definitely, and I'd never shy of this, of who you know. There was definitely elements of being in the right place at the right time as regions were growing and structures were expanding and working hard and having fun. But there was a real success-led culture. And what I remember most of all from my time in merchants, and that's in Jewson and Sangaban, more structurally heading a region, and then as sales manager, sales rep, them positions there. It was the personalities that I just bought into so much. There was inspirational personalities who had started on a forklift and were now MDs. There was people that worked in the yard running some of the biggest branches, and you can't not be inspired by that. There wasn't at the time as many people with degrees in their portfolio. That come later, with the graduate schemes and those areas, Luke. So look, we've spoke about my merchant career, but most people know my story. And for the last 21 years, I've been rocking and rolling with a Foyne Jones recruitment group. For your good self, Luke, that journey from an apprentice, a sabbatical, selling TV and media packages, back into the merchants itself. It took you to big heights and big positions. But then, like many people who may be listening to this episode, and certainly many previous guests on my podcast who've been very open about the situation, you had to dive deep into the theme for my last series. You had to show some real resilience. And whilst that career has been from the ground up, you arrived at a point where you was looking for position, mate. So you're looking for position. So the R word impacted you. You was made redundant. They're tough times for anyone, mate. And I remember speaking to you at the time, and it was a real shock to the system for you, and it's a bounce back from.
It was. It came of a real shock, Peter. And one thing I think that really helped me through it, there was kind of two things. The first and foremost, when I got made redundant, we were just hitting the World Cup in 2022. So I managed to watch loads of games and have some downtime. I think that was one thing that helped, despite England not winning it. And then the second thing was, and going back to the family piece, having parents, having very close friends, and at the very forefront of it, my wife and two fantastic kids, helps you find some real energy to go, actually, it's a time of reflection to step back and think about what you've done. And that's probably a bit of a shout out to anybody that goes through a tough time. After my reasonably long experience in Travis's, learning off very influential people, really getting understanding when that redundancy word hits you and you realise, okay, this is happening, nothing I can do to stop it. Then you've got to, like you mentioned, dig deep, and not only having that support method around me from fantastic family and friends is actually the very one thing that keeps me in this industry is the people. The exact reason why you keep going. I had some absolutely fantastic people reach out to me in that time, in the time of need. What you did, Peter, for people in CVs and conversations was absolutely magnificent, and how we kind of first met, which understanding people's stories and taking the time out was amazing. Suppliers that I got to know over time that worked with me at the Green and Gold, and also customers. So it was fantastic to be able to keep speaking to people in the industry, get some real support from all of us that have to club together. And what's really important to me, and always was, is that then we pay that back. So in them time of needs now, when people struggle, we're always there for that opening hand. I've joined the Peter Jones parade where we go, do you know what? If I can help somebody, I know what it's like. I know how tough it is. And you do have that time of going, what's next, and what does that look like for my career, my journey? Where am I going to be? What am I going to be doing? However, the people make the industry. It's as simple as that. Full stop at the end. That's the most important thing.
I mean, the Peter Jones parade, I'm quite excited about, Luke. That could be like an annual event. You know, we can go from Craven Cottage somewhere. Who knows? But you know, I want to say this actually quite soberly, because when you are made redundant, it's a terrifying time for many people, and there's no soft landing. You know, the brutal reality is what you were doing regularly has gone. So there is financial pressure, there's emotional pressure, there's feeling you're a failure, there's all of those areas. And as a owner of a recruitment business, you can't fix everyone. You know, you can't put someone into employment. So what I try and do is be as supportive and compassionate as I can, and make myself available when I can to talk to people. I spoke to someone earlier today. I was driving back from Hove back to the office, and I knew I'd have about 35 minutes. So I said, look, I'm going to give you a call. Let's just chat. And I probably listened for 20 of those 30 minutes, and I could just feel the individual. She was actually answering her own questions as she was talking, but being there and just saying, look, it will be okay. It might not feel like it, but it will be okay. And if we can improve what you feel about yourself and improve how your CV looks and give you more confidence on social media and help you prepare better for any next conversation you're having, you're going to be in a better place. And it is dark and it is tough. So you as an example of that, and you showed resilience. You dug deep, you lent on your family, you lent on the industry, and you've turned it into something quite exciting now, haven't you?
I have, yeah. And thanks to the people keeping me strong and working with that, I think is massive. And and that's led me to a place of kind of deciding what we wanted to do. So when the gig of Home and Trade came around and had some great conversations here, there was a real opportunity to put everything that I've learned into practice and say, right, okay, how do I make this business here something that it absolutely should be, and that is now the challenge that I've got, one that we're absolutely thriving on with a fantastic team that we're building, real family feel, and being about the customers and the local community, and that is an absolute paramount importance for us. So when you've got that, when you've got the ingredients to do that as a team, and most importantly the will to want to succeed, then when we go back to talking about people and it will be okay. I'd sat there many times in a panic going, I'm not sure what I want to do, and sometimes offers on the table and not sure whether that's the right thing and doing it for the sake of it. I say to everybody out there, it absolutely will be okay, 100%. And now it's led me to a point where I'm extremely happy. We are doing some fantastic stuff. And then, it's a point of going, not will we succeed, but how far do we really want to go with this? And that's the message out there for everybody, is that you will find the right thing. And now I'm on a fantastic journey with Home and Trade Limited to take us to new heights.
And that's the Luke Brittle story so far, if we look at it like that. And I think that the industry itself needs young individuals like you who have worked their way from the ground up. That you haven't always had it easy. You've gone through a dark and difficult time, but you've gone again and got yourself into a position now. And I watch from a distance. I see the updates. I see that we're launching this. The team are doing this. We're wearing our football shirts. We're doing this fundraising. We've got a breakfast morning. We can launch a new department, and you can just see that you're celebrating the people within your business. You are doing that special aspect of linking it to the community. And some people say to me, I'm in London, I'm in Manchester, I'm in Birmingham, the community is so big. I'm like, think small. Think about, your immediate community, who's coming into your arena, who's near you, who can you influence. And I think that's when you start thinking about mental health and some of the work the great charities are doing, inside construction like Bands and Builders, and away from it like Andy's Man Club. Businesses are trying to help people. Mental Health Week, I'm always a little bit, it's great to put a post out, but do you mean it? It's great to say that, but look at the way you just closed them stores, and look at the way you've made people feel. There's a balance there where I'm always a little bit, okay, have we really got this right? And I heard some horror stories during the waves of redundancies and the people I'm speaking to. The way some individuals' careers have ended or employment's ended has been horrific. And we've got to learn from that. We've got to say we've got to do the right thing. We've got to do better. Businesses have to make tough decisions. I have to make tough decisions. You have to make tough decisions. Not everyone's going to like those decisions, but how you deliver them, the empathy you have, the kindness you have, the compassion you have, that's how people will remember you. It's how you make them feel. In my younger days, I was very similar to you. I was very up for it. I was fiery. I was passionate. I was like, come on, let's do it. Let's build this today. Let's get it done. Now, I'm nearer 50 than 20, and I'm nearer 50 than 30. So I look at it in a way where I'm thinking, right, what's the right thing to do? If we do this with a smile on our face, we have some fun, the outcome's going to be there. And I thank you for sharing the rawness of that story. And it's great that you're so positive and optimistic about the here and now and what you're doing with Home and Trade. So first part of the show, we spoke about where it began for you, and that took us perfectly to that difficult moment when you had to do something you probably never had on the radar. Got to go and look for a job again. I've got to put myself back out there. You went through that and you're giving advice to others. When we come back after the break, we're going to talk about football, and in particular, we're going to talk about two football teams. One, Derby County. Second, Burton Albion. And we talk about the work your business is doing in the community and with the team. And then we'll actually then start giving your thoughts, feedback and advice on a young Luke, a young Peter Jones, or people that are boys and girls beginning their career, what they should think about when they're applying for a job, what you should think about if you're hiring someone. How important is attitude against product knowledge? How important are transferable skills against proven experience in an industry? All specialist subjects for me, but I'm asking my guests to give their view on it, because actually these are real scenarios that many of our listeners are facing on their search for employment. So enjoy the first half of the show, Luke. I'll see you after half time, mate. All right?
See you soon.
When it comes to bricks, there's only one company to speak with. ET Clay have something for every brick project. With over 400 products across our 2 depots, we are the builder's merchant, brick merchant.
Okay, welcome back to episode 4 of season 8. Still can't believe I'm saying season 8 of my podcast, The Foyne Jones Show. I've been joined today in the virtual Riverside FM studio by Luke Brittle. Luke has took us through his builder's merchant journey. He spoke about quite openly, and this is important for the listeners, he's spoken openly about how he's about to battle back from redundancy. He's in a position which he says he's never been happier. He's loving every minute of it. So while we've got him in a good mood, we're going to talk about your football team. So you might have guessed it earlier. You're a fan of the Rams. You're a fan of Derby County. Most famous for sharing a Panini badge foil sticker with Fulham back in the 80s. But let's talk about your love of Derby, mate, because you're a big part of your life, aren't they, Derby County?
Oh, massive. Yeah, and I've got my dad to thank for that, Peter, because growing up, my dad was always a massive Derby fan. And at the time of a youngster, happens at different ages, but getting involved in football, it was pretty clear to see the old baseball ground had some form of fantastic atmosphere. And it was kind of got to a point where I went to a game, and when we talk about this as a family, it's quite funny because you always remember...
It had a terrible away end.
It had a terrible away end.
Sorry to interrupt you, but the great atmosphere for 70, 80, 85% of the fans was brilliant for the home fans. But when you were tucked in that little corner as a away fan, it weren't that pleasant and it weren't that nice, to be honest.
No. I think a few grounds are a little bit like that. But no, you're absolutely right. And actually, some of the games you go to at the baseball ground, you get a right big concrete post in front of you. You'd have to keep arching around it to see what was going on. But you know, my first game I ever went to, which was a fantastic memory, was
tell us.
We'd beaten Portsmouth 3-2, and after the game we'd gone inside the ground and got myself some signed memorabilia and managed to meet some of the great players that were playing at that time. So, and kind of from that point, it might be your typical story actually with younger lads, but from that point, I was pretty hooked and knew that Derby County was absolutely the one. So, and you know, Pete, the nice bit is that over my childhood, one of the great memories I'd had in a fantastic childhood was having a season ticket, going to the game with my dad and some close friends, and really lapping up the experience and the journey and learning the highs and lows of football. Being a Derby fan, many lows. But you know what? All part and parcel of it, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, I've seen Fulham lose at the baseball ground. I've seen them lose at Pride Park. There's that infamous game and I was only 7-8 years old, but there's the infamous Fulham Derby game in the old second division, and Paul Parker, he was subbed that day, and he talks about it. He spoke about it on my podcast, and Fulham had to win to get promoted to the first division, and Derby were battling to stay up. I think they needed a point to stay up, and Derby fans invaded the pitch. It was I wasn't at the game, I was too young, but you know, Fulham fans told me, my family told me, Derby fans invaded the pitch, and the ref blew early. Like he called the game off like in the 87th minute or something like that. And you know, back then, ref's decision was final. So Derby stayed up. Fulham missed out on promotion, and I kid you not, that day Chelsea won on the last game of the season, so they didn't get relegated. So Derby and Chelsea. Next season, Fulham went down and kept going down. Chelsea went back up to the first division. We didn't play Chelsea for 25 years. And Paul Parker said he went from getting relegated with Fulham, right, to joining QPR, playing on the plastic pitch, and then playing in Italian 90, all within about 3 years, and signing for Fergie at Man U. He said it was a very, very surreal kind of journey, but that's probably the most famous Fulham Derby incident over the years. I bumped into Malcolm McDonald. I was at a Middlesbrough Fulham match, and he was just doing half-time entertainment, and he was the manager at the time, and I said, "Oh, Malcolm, I'm a Fulham fan." He said, "Well, I don't want to say nothing about Derby County. I'm still angry about it." I'm like, "It's a long time ago." He's like, "No, yeah, our team should have gone up." So I think there was that element there. But I remember there was a season when you didn't have a very good season. I think it was 2007-8 or 6-7, something like that.
That's
It was
right,
that one,
yeah.
and it wasn't a very good season. You didn't get many points, but you got 4 of Fulham that year. So it was. I think we contributed quite well. So I think it's great to see Derby back at it as well. So who's your all-time Derby kind of Hall of Famers? Who are the players that you really look back on or even admire now? Who are the players that stand out for you?
Do you know, I thought for a minute you were going to ask me who my all-time favourite Derby player was. And it's something, I've never really thought about too much. But one thing's for sure is that I couldn't pick out an absolute ultimate favourite. However, in the kind of era of me going through watching the games, was kind of the era of moving from the baseball ground to Pride Park. Now, if you remember the late Jim Smith in charge of Derby at the time, and at that point he was signing players such as Stefano Aranio, Francesco Baiano, Dean Sturridge, and moving into another era of the world of the likes of Paolo Wanchop, who went on to play for the likes of Man City. And that is kind of like my era of the great Igor Stimac in defence, and they were really the players that inspired me to want to keep playing football myself, be better. They get you off your seat every game, of course, and we actually looked like a club that could really challenge things. Where way back then you didn't spend the money that is spent now. So kind of that kind of era was absolutely massive for me, and it's amazing how it's always part of your childhood. Then these players for me are absolute legends. Whilst in the days of my dad watching them, where we've seen them play at the very dizzy heights that Derby have been at with the likes of Ted McMinn, etc. Roy McFarland are some of them that just.
Tin Man. The Tin Man, Ted McMinn.
Yeah, that's it. So,
I remember a young Big Tom spraying the ball about for Derby.
Yeah,
he was there, wasn't he? Huddleston back in the day. One of the more recent times was the playoff 2-leg game between Fulham and Derby, and we got beat 1-0 at Derby, and you came down to Craven Cottage. It was the second leg, and there's a couple of things that stay in my mind. Yes, we won, which got us to Wembley, and at that time, the nearest I got to Wembley as a Fulham fan was Sunday Market, Wembley Market. We never got to Wembley. We were Fulham. It's only the second time in our history we've gone to Wembley. First time was the year I was born, so I missed out on that one. But we got to Wembley and we beat Villa, which is great. But I remember the battle between Curtis Davis and Alexander Mitrovic. It was like two gladiators. It was as good as the match, just watching Mitro peel off, Davis would go with him. He'd come early, Davis would hit him. And Mitro didn't get a sniff, but what he was able to do was take Davis out, and then we nicked in and we got a couple of goals. But I think where that went wrong for Derby is you arrived at Craven Cottage, you were 1-up, and you started time wasting after 10 minutes. And it didn't work, it didn't work. And I think we won 2-0 at home. We edged it on points, and we were on the back of a 23-game unbeaten run. So it was, I think the momentum was with us. But I remember that really well just because of those moments. I spoke to you about that when we were talking about coming on the show. And the last time I was up there, we were trying to get ourselves promoted. Like we were desperately trying to get ourselves promoted, and we were 1-up at half time, and don't know what Wayne Rooney said at half time, but we ended up losing the game. We were promoted at half time. We were celebrating under the concourse, and then somehow, you didn't have a kick, and then somehow we lost 2-1. We're thinking, how's that happened? How did that happen? So it's one of those games. But I think you summed up being a Derby fan. It's what I talk about being a Fulham fan. You don't. It's the hope that gets you. It's the hope that gets you. We was really excited going into the Villa game at the weekend. We had a good go at Man City. We had a go at Villa, and we might have cut the goals up if we scored our pen. We didn't. We got well beat. Villa were better. We got well beat 3-1, and it's just that reality check really. I think for Fulham, anything fourth bottom would do me this year. I think we're going to be comfortably mid-table. We may get 8th, 7th, we may end up 13th, 14th, but I think that'll be where we end up. Here's a question for you. You've given us some of your favourite players. I might come back and get you to pick one of them as your all-time player. But what are your honest expectations for this season, Luke, for Derby?
I would say lots of Derby fans have probably got two expectations. The first expectation is to fight to stay in the league. And the reason I say that is because if we roll the clock back, 2 to 3 years ago, Derby County nearly ceased to exist. So it's quite easy to forget that, knowing that we've got a great fan base, knowing that we've got history, but actually forgetting that you nearly didn't exist 2 years ago. It was a pretty scary and dark time for everybody involved in Derby County. So kind of the first bit for us is a little bit of a reality check, funnily enough, you talked about that, is that going actually, we're still a club, and that's point number one. But the Championship is certainly where we belong at the very least. The second part of us, which is the bit where the football runs away with you, is then going, okay, what can we actually achieve as a club? So I think most Derby fans would say that a mid-table finish, and we're talking anywhere between kind of 10th down to 15th, 16th, would be pretty good for us this season. Fingers crossed, though. We get David Ozo, who we got on loan from Palace, some player he is getting back from the injury list, and get ourselves another striker in January, somebody that can get us some goals. But guess what? There isn't many of them out there. Unless Mitrovic fancies coming and having a bit of a spell with us, then we stand a chance. But otherwise, it'd be a really interesting season. So mid-table is where I think we'll be. Be very, very happy with that. But we're going to need January to come round. We're going to need to recruit a striker and look at a couple of things. Nonetheless, we're still a club. We're still doing really, really well. And let's see what the future holds, because it's quite an exciting time for Derby and looking at investors, etc. as well. So fingers crossed, we just grow from here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wish the football club, the fans, all the best. It's a proper football club. It's one of those that's got history. It's got proper names amongst it. It's got, and I've seen us go head to head in so many different divisions. So I always have kind of those type of teams where I've seen them play in different leagues. I always have a quite affinity with it, because the fans have been on the same journey. Talk about a different level of football slightly, but another club that has punched well above its weight in its surrounding area. You've got their shirt behind your shoulder. Burton Albion, they've punched well above their weight. They're a club very close to where you are, and you've got strong links from a business and community perspective, and it'd be great to talk about them as well, because I'm a big believer in all levels of football. So talk to me about that club and the relationship that you and the business have with that club, Luke.
Yeah, so from a personal perspective, little old Burton Albion were knocking around in the non-league. Certainly when I was a youngster, and you'd go to the odd game again and give them a watch under Nigel Clough and building up from there. So now absolutely doing fantastic as a club, really, really well. Going through a little bit of a tricky spell in League One, of course, and ironically that we're having this conversation because this morning they've released the manager of their duties and decided to go in a different direction because they sit at the bottom of the league. So I think what's really, really important is that Burton Albion has done fantastic, and I think it's fair to say that they are very proud of where they're at compared to where they were. And what was really important for us here is around local community. So we can deal with all types of customers, which is fantastic. Our kind of plan at Home and Trade was very much around your local builders, looking after the local builders, working with the local community. And one thing that connects a lot of people together is football. So when we kind of sat down as a management team here, and in some of our board meetings talked around how we can connect with the local community, how do we really make a statement out there to say that we're here and we're here to stay, and this is Home and Trade and what we're about. There's nothing better than having that with Burton Albion. And we had great dialogue with our ex-chairman, and who's always been fantastic. And then through a bit of a point where, of course, that's been sold onto the Nordic group, who have been great, and we've had some fantastic conversations, and they've got a great vision. But the beauty of that is that there's a nice little touch where, for us and for them, Peter, it was just around going, actually, there's sponsorship deals out there. There's, you can sponsor somebody. What they really wanted to do is create a partnership, not just a sponsorship, but a partnership. And that's one thing they said to us, and that put a smile on our face, because that's exactly what we're trying to achieve. We achieve a partnership with our customers. We have a family feel business, and then that affects back straight to Burton Albion going, actually, we're absolutely a partnership here. We work together. So we support them in projects that they have at the football ground that they want to improve. Meanwhile, as part of our partnership agreement, then we pay them to be part of their journey as well. And fantastically this year, we do a lot of that. We go to the games with customers on the regular, build that community feel, and then we're a big part of that club, including being part of the shorts and on the kit. So fantastic for us to give back to the community, and I encourage everybody to do that.
I think it's fantastic. Our shout out to ET Clay, who sponsored this podcast. They've taken the world of bricks into Leyton Orient Football Club, and they've embedded themselves as a partner. And even on a much smaller scale, here at Foyne Jones, I've supported Lewis Football Club. I've done some stuff with Worthing, and it's great to be able to give something back, even if it's something very small. It's still an opportunity, I think, to recognise everything that goes on, because the game isn't just the Champions League and the Premier League and International. There's so much more that goes on. And you mentioned something. I'm not letting you get away with it. You mentioned something at the very start of the podcast, that you've got your whistle, you got your bag of balls, and you're out there coaching now. So many of my guests and so many people I speak to are involved in junior football. I was for a long time. So are you enjoying it? You don't like the special one of that league? Are you a Pep or more of an Harry Redknapp type? How would you describe your coaching style, Luke?
Wow.
All right, Cloughie, there you go. That's a different one. You're more Cloughie, kicking him out the backside.
That'd be a compliment. I'm probably actually a little bit of a soft touch with them at times. I think I played for the club when I was younger, and my lad's slowly getting into football. And one of the things that stood out for me is during the team that he played with, so still Stretton Eagles, but his old team, he was one of the weaker players in the team, and would get a little less game time because of that reason, which you can completely understand in a competitive league. So actually, when we, as a club, when they kind of said that they got loads of youngsters wanting to join, that we decided to create the third team, and that's where I kind of stepped in. So first and foremost, with the players, we're actually classed as a development team, which I think is really important. So I kind of sat there and went, that really suits me, because part and parcel of development happens every day, in and out of our lives, pushing yourself, working with my team. It's all around development, giving them the skills, giving them the tools to learn and working with them. Why wouldn't I want to pass that through? One, that's a passion in football, and secondly, what I do day to day with work, right? So makes sense. So, So that's kind of why I got into it and said, right, let's give this a go. Let's give it a good go. And meanwhile, I'm getting to coach my son and watch him grow and develop. So style of management, probably a little bit of a Harry Redknapp. Let's shove them out there, see what they can do. They're a bit gung-ho. Yeah. And you know what? If they don't listen, they're in big trouble. That's the point in training. If you're not listening, you're not learning. So, but it's great to do it again.
I used to coach for Fulham, and I did Hammersmith Fulham area community. And what was so humbling is I'd get young kids that were brought there from all backgrounds, completely inclusive. So I get kids that were brought by their nannies, and not their grandparent. I mean their au pair or their nannies, because their dad was a world-leading cancer surgeon, or he was a stockbroker from Canary Wharf, or her mum was a fashion designer. So you had those children playing with kids that were coming from the local flats or the local estates, or people from the local hostels. Everyone was welcome, because you know what? When they went on that pitch, everyone's smiling, everyone's equal, and we did do that. You had the ones that were there for the day out, you had the ones that had some potential, and you had ones that were good enough to be put into different development levels and squads and whatever, and we got them playing, as well as being coached well. We got some great young coaches that were really good. We got them playing some competitive football as well, and you get some hammerings, and you learn from defeats as much as you learn from winning, and actually the best players at under 8 are not often the best players at under 10, and the best players at under 10 are never the best players at under 18. And it plays out that way, and I think it's amazing that you're giving that back, and actually it does complete that journey. So you're combining it with parenting. You might be a soft touch, but you're doing it with your heart in the right place. So that's the football journey. We spoke about Derby County, we spoke about Burton Albion, and we spoke about your team, Stretton Eagles. Shout out to Stretton Eagles. All right, let's keep us updated on how they do this season, whether there's any silverware or trophies or just amazing moments which you can't make up, which happens in junior football almost every week. My challenge, I still say this, my challenge was never the players, right? My challenge was the parents. If I could manage them, the football bit was easy. The football bit was easy. So there we go, mate. So, anyone who knows. Anyone who knows. And I am quite glad I've retired the whistle now. It's been a while for me, but I wouldn't have it any other way. If I was given a chance to do it again, I would do it again. All day long, all day, every day. Absolutely loved it. And it does become just a complete part of who you are. The training, the fixtures, the match, how you're going to get there, how you're going to, and it just becomes part of everything. So brilliant. Look, we've got to know you. We spoke about the business. We spoke about the amazing things that are happening every day for you right now. I want to spin this slightly and wrap the podcast up, thinking about our next generation, maybe drawing on your experience and just talking about, some words of wisdom and advice you get to maybe people beginning their career. And then I'm going to pose a few questions at you as well, which I'm going to be interesting to gauge your answers. But what advice would you give to your younger selves, to our younger selves at the beginning of the journey?
I guess for me, one of the most important things, if I'm talking to myself at a younger age, is going, every single person in any walk of life, there's no rush. There's no rush to get to the next stage. There is no, you've only got yourself, right? You've only got yourself that you're competing against, nobody else. So sometimes just becoming a master at what you're learning. Listening to the people around you, the people with experience that you can't go out and buy, right? It's not a t-shirt you can just chuck on. You have to go and learn the trade properly. Listen to the people's advice that are around you. Really try and draw on their experiences and make sure that you've got a sponge to soak that up. Because what's so important for me is that people don't need to be in a race against each other. Everything is around self-development and making sure that you are absolutely confident in what you do in that role. And I think for me, that's one of the biggest messages that I say to everybody is, when you're ready, you will know. When you're ready, your bosses will know, because you'll have that same feeling. Otherwise, just take your time, learn off the people around you, and that will absolutely help you develop tenfold. And that's something that I preach a lot to the team here and people that I talk to when I'm trying to help them in their career as well. So that's probably, Peter, quite a short message, but very, very powerful in my opinion. To just take that time and learn.
It's a really, really good message, actually, because managing expectation, giving yourself time to get better at something, doing the basics and doing them again and again, they become habits and we become better. We learn by mistakes, and we've got to be allowed, you need a good coach, good manager, good mentor to let you make mistakes and then pick up and go from there. So I think there's some real calm and composed advice there, Luke. So good question for you. If you're hiring for your business, and I don't know, it's a sales customer facing position. Are you looking at product knowledge as a must-have, or are you looking at personality and charisma and sales ability as a must-have? How do you weigh that up when you're considering someone for suitability for the business and for that type of position? What do you look for?
Every single time I recruit for a business, and in any business, you and me know that in any business, the people make the business. It is as simple as that. So when it comes down to recruiting for a particular role, for example, the sales counter and dealing with sales, it is absolutely 100% based on personality. 100%. I could sit there and teach people around products. They can have supplier training. They can learn what the product is by touching, feeling it, selling it, asking questions. Absolutely, personality has to come into place in this. So that's something I'm very, very passionate about. If you have the right personality to engage with customers, to engage with your team, you will learn the products at a great pace. You'll understand how things work together and how the industry works. But for me, if we base ourselves just off product or just off somebody that feels they know everything product-wise, that can't respectfully hold that conversation and be able to communicate, because communication is absolutely massive, then there's always that little bit of a sticking point. So every time I sit down here and have a meeting with somebody around a job, it's all based on personality. And that's really important, that actually a member, two of most recent member of staff is one of them was working at a local business, looking for his first full-time role. We wanted to open up as an apprenticeship, learning on the job. Do you know what? Doing exactly the way I did it. And he's got an absolute heart of gold. He works very, very hard. He listens carefully, and he just wants to have a bit of fun and learn. His personality is fantastic. And then the same again with Maisie in marketing, who has gone to university, got a degree. Then she came to me and said, "Do you know what? I don't have any experience." I said, "No, but what you have is absolutely the right personality to come and ask and learn and improve and listen to people in the business, not just myself, but your teammates." And that absolutely helps us as a business grow a lot quicker. So for me, absolutely 100% got to be around personality.
It's great to hear. It's great to hear, because we battle, and a lot of the job seekers, candidates, people I'm working with, they battle lots of rejection. They battle rejection because they've not worked for a competitor of that business. They battle rejection because they've not sold that product before. They battle rejection because they've not worked with that software before. They battle rejection because they've come from a very different industry, and this will be their first time at building materials in the world of construction. And it's a real tough one, because I work with so many businesses that tell me they are inclusive, that tell me they do not discriminate, that tell me they don't have any bias. But when we actually get down sometimes to the real decision-making process, if they don't live in the right area, fit into the right salary, have sold the right product to the right customer, and got 3 or 4 years previous experience, they don't get an interview. And I'm going like, but hold on, you're writing off this person, that person, that person, that person, that person, to someone who might be average at doing the job, but because they've got perceived contacts and perceived understanding of how much a sheet of MDF is, or a couple of lengths of 4x2, you're going to go with them. Why can't we invest in training? Why can't we invest in onboarding? Why can't we bring good people in? And I will shout this out loud, because it happens. It does. Look, this happens every day. So for someone like yourself who's going to say, no, I am going to give a chance, this is going on, isn't it? This is genuinely going on.
Yeah. And do you've already hit the nail on the head. You just mentioned around training. Our job in this industry is to coach, is to lead, is to train and help them learn, and then give them the tools to succeed, and make sure that we help them succeed in the path that they want to go down. there's no other direction that we can go except giving people the tools and training them to do the job correctly. If we do that and they've got a personality where they want to learn and listen and succeed, then wow, what a booming industry we'll have. Because you're right, it happens way too much in our industry, and it's something that I'm extremely passionate about, is giving the right person an opportunity, and you know what? They could be the next leader of your business. It's just as simple as that.
Luke, you know that drum roll that I said I wasn't going to play, that automatic drum roll? I think how you've just ended the conversation there, give people a chance, they could become the most powerful asset to your business. That's the perfect moment for us to end this episode. It's been brilliant for you to join me on the show. We've spoken about your career, your love of Derby County, the work you're doing with Burton Albion, all things home and trade. And I don't think we should undervalue how passionate you are about that business and what that business is doing. If anyone wants any information, they can reach out to you directly. You're going to offer them advice. You're going to be someone who will give back to the industry. And I applaud you for that, because that's a quality that lots of people talk about but don't often demonstrate. Saying it and doing it are two very, very different things. And it's great to see you doing that. I wish you every success. I want to get you back on the show to talk about Fulham and Derby, and also talk about the progress you've made. But I want to wrap things up by saying thank you once again to our sponsors, E.T. Clay. Season 8 from the ground up wouldn't exist without them. Shout out to Charlie Hooler. He's got some editing to do with this episode, and we're going to put it out, and we're going to celebrate the amazing people and the careers that are in the builders merchant industry. Luke, thanks for being part of the show, mate. You enjoyed yourself?
Fantastic. Thank you very much for having me. And great shout out to you, Mr. Jones, for everything that you do. And my advice to everybody, keep watching from the ground up. Thank you very much.
Nice one, Luke. We'll see you next time. Thank you for listening. Always a pleasure. We're with you from the ground up. Take care.